Alrighty, welcome everybody to Workshop Wednesday. So if you're not familiar with what Workshop Wednesday is, this is our digital forensics technical topic session that we do every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. So we're going to have Q&A at the end, so save your questions for the end and we'll invite you to come on and ask your questions live over microphone if you're comfortable doing that, or you can ask them in the chat and we'll get to those. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Matt, and I'll come back for the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Um, Everybody, thanks for joining again. Looks like we got some solid attendance today. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Matt Danner. I'm the CEO of Monolith Forensics. Before starting the company, I've also had a pretty extensive background in digital forensics as a digital forensics expert. So the purpose of these Workshop Wednesdays webinars is every 2 weeks I try to cover some technical topic that I think could be interesting and could have some value and some potentially hopefully some educational content that will help you guys do your job and just kind of enrich your knowledge a little bit. I try to keep these as practical as possible, so it's stuff that you can actually utilize. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just bear with me. Let me do my 30-second sales pitch for the company, and then we'll hop right into everything. So again, I work for Monolith Forensics. I'm the CEO. This is our company. We basically just sell one product, which is a case and lab management system for digital forensics teams, e-discovery teams, cybersecurity teams. So if you're interested in something like that, just hop over to the website, take a look, poke around, and if you're interested, just reach out to us. Fill out our contact form, and we'll set up a demo and a trial for you so you can play with it yourself. Okay, thanks. All right, so what we're talking about today, let me pull up my simple notes here. I know this is going to be hard to see, but I can't zoom in right now. But basically, what we're going to be working on is extracting WhatsApp data from Android devices. And for those of you that do a lot of mobile device work, this is a kind of a specific process that I'm going to be demonstrating where right now on Android devices, in order to extract WhatsApp chat data on an Android device, you basically need to get a full file system extraction. If you're using something like Cellebrite or other mobile extraction tools, if you just do a simple logical extraction, you're not going to get WhatsApp chats. You may get some of the WhatsApp media content. So things like you may get like the attachments or media that's been uploaded in a chat because that's stored in a location that's accessible with non-root level access on the phone. But if you're trying to get the actual chat data, it's actually really hard to get it through normal extraction. So you basically have to have a full file system. The problem with that is, even if you have something like Celebrate Premium or VeriKey or GrayKey, not all devices are supported for full file system extraction. So if you can't get or for whatever reason, if you're starting the process and you just can't get it to work, and you're just stuck with just doing a normal logical extraction of some kind, well, you have this problem where you got these WhatsApp chats on the device and you can't get them off. So I'm going to walk through a process that I've used myself, that I've tested before this presentation. That it's a multi-step process that will show you how you can actually get the extracted text messages. And what's important about this is we're going to get the raw database off of the phone. So what that means is you should be able to, with this method, extract the data and still load it into parsing tools like Axiom or Cellebrite or whatever and get a nicely parsed data set. Or if you're really fancy like me, you can just write your own SQL scripts and a Python script to parse all this stuff. And there's also parsing tools out there that you can use for WhatsApp. So in case you weren't aware, with iPhone, the reason we're doing this on Android, not iPhone, is because the way iPhone works is even if you just do a basic iTunes extraction, if you do an encrypted iTunes backup of an iPhone, you will get the WhatsApp chat message database. So that's why if you do just a normal logical extraction of an iPhone with something like Cellebrite and you load the Cellebrite Physical Analyzer, or Insights as they call it now, you'll actually see WhatsApp chat messages on the phone. It just doesn't work that way on Android, so we have to figure out we have to have a different strategy. So a couple of quick caveats on this method. Obviously, you need to have full access to the device. So you have to have physical access to it, and it needs to be unlocked. Pretty much need to have the passcode to the phone. You need to be able to, now, I'm going to use USB debugging for this process. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I believe this is the most efficient and probably most forensically sound way to do this process because we need to copy some data off the device. And probably the cleanest way to do that is through ADB using USB debugging. Otherwise, you'd have to connect the device up to some storage system or somehow be able to, basically export data off the phone. I think using ADB is the cleanest way to do that. But it's not necessary. So if you don't want to turn on dev mode and you don't want to do USB debugging, you don't necessarily have to, but I believe it's probably the most efficient and principally sound and easiest way to do it. Like I said, you need to have unlocked access to the device. And one other thing too is when you inspect the WhatsApp application on the phone, you need to check uh, if the chat backups are already set with end-to-end encryption. If they are set to end-to-end encryption, like if the user has set them to end-to-end encryption already, that's going to be a bit of a roadblock because we're going to use that same method to get the data off the device. But if they've already enabled that option, that could be a little tricky to disable it. You may have to see. This is something I haven't researched. Maybe to see if there's a way to disable that or re-enable it or something along those lines. And once we go through the process, you'll see why this is important. A couple of resources that we're using for this. Obviously, we're going to use ADB, so Android Debugging Bridge. You can get these tools for free. This is just, you just Google ADB tools, and it'll take you straight to the Android developer download page for these platform tools. So just download it for your flavor of operating system, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, so on and so forth. We're also going to use an open source GitHub library. So it's a Python library called WA Crypt Tools. This is somebody out there was gracious enough to do a little bit of research and write these encryption and decryption tools that are WhatsApp specific. And we're going to make use of these here in a minute. FYI, I know this text is small. If you can't see it, that's okay. I'm going to export this and we're going to share it. This video is going to be recorded. It'll eventually be uploaded to YouTube in probably about 2 weeks, and we'll have links to this documentation so that you can access it. Okay, so a little bit of info about WhatsApp on Android. If you're not aware, the main chat database, so the SQLite database that stores the WhatsApp chats, are stored in a protected location on the phone, which means you need root access to the phone to access that database location. Otherwise, the rest of the WhatsApp data is actually stored in a location that you can access. You can even access it directly on your phone. So if you pull up the Files app on your Android, you can just navigate to this location on the phone and actually browse through the WhatsApp data that's stored in a user accessible location. And like I said, what you're going to see in this folder are things like, and we're going to look at this in a minute, but you're going to see things like media files, backups, and a bunch of other stuff that WhatsApp manages for the user. And also what's interesting is even though the chat database is stored in a secured location, media and files that are uploaded in WhatsApp in a chat group or a chat message are actually stored in an unencrypted format in this user accessible area, which I think is really interesting. It's like, great, so I can't access the messages, but I can access any documents or files or videos that I've shared with people. Also, backups are stored here, but backups are encrypted using the same encryption that is used for end-to-end encryption in the WhatsApp application. But again, it does not include the main WhatsApp database. So that's what this whole presentation is about, is like, cool, we've got this data here, but really we need the actual message database. So this whole procedure is about getting that main WhatsApp database. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I should put another tool here for this demonstration. This isn't necessary for the process, but I'll put this here also as a resource, and I'll put a link to it. We're going to use an application called Visor, which is Visor is basically a visualization tool where you can hook up your Android or iOS device to your computer and basically open up a screen share to it. And what's great about it is, for Android at least, it's not just screen share, it's also an interface. So you can actually use your mouse to click in and actually view and interact with the Android device on your computer. So I've got a physical device here. This is a Samsung. It's one of the lower tier Galaxy models, and it's connected to my MacBook, and I've got it for streaming through Visor. and I can use the mouse here to interact with it so that you guys can see what I'm doing on the phone. And so what I have here is I have a WhatsApp database loaded here on the phone with just some dummy messages. So Maher is one of our engineers. I just sent some messages, some BS messages with him the other day just to populate this database with some messages. And then we got Joey, who's our main sales guy, also employee number one at the company, is the first employee that I hired. Shared some messages here. He told me some bad jokes, which is great. So we can now see that WhatsApp here, we have some messages, we have some content here that can be extracted. A couple of things I'm also going to show here is we have I have a couple of terminal windows open up here on the Mac OS. Hopefully, I zoomed in on this, so hopefully you guys can see it. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more and make this even bigger, just so that you guys can actually see what's going on here. Give me just a second. Okay, great. And then clear there, clear. Okay. So what I've got is I've got this folder just called WhatsApp testing. And you can see when I list this directory, I've got an ADB executable in there. So what that means is I can run ADB devices. And since my Android is connected, it's in USB debugging mode. My MacBook can establish a connection to the Android. And a quick way to test that is just to run ADB devices. And then you're going to get a list of attached Android devices here. And I can see here's the serial number, RFCX9, blah, blah, blah. If I go over to Visor, Visor is showing me that same serial number right here. A little hard to see, but just take my word for it. That's the right serial number. So what's great about ADB is I can do all kinds of stuff. So I can do ADB devices. I can also do ADB shell. And that's just going to open up a command shell on the Android devices already. So if you're not familiar with ADB, if you've never used it, this is a really cool tool. Highly encourage you to play around with it. Here, I just opened up a terminal shell on the device. So now all these commands I'm running right now where it says A35X, these are commands that are just being run on the Android device. And right now I'm just browsing the directory. So I'm at the root directory. I just did a list command so you can see all these directories on the file system of the phone that we can access without being a root user. And the important place that we care about for WhatsApp, the user-related access files that we have are going to be in a specific location. They're going to be in SD card. And then if we do a list command there, we can see all these sections. This is basically the user area of the phone where user data goes. We can go into CD Android again. And now inside the Android folder, we have this data, media, OBB folder. I want to go into the media folder. And inside media, you can see we have, because this phone is mostly white, there's not really anything on it. The only app I have on it here really is the WhatsApp app. And then I can CD into that WhatsApp folder and see what's in there. Okay, we got a WhatsApp folder. Again, I can CD here. We got a media folder. And basically, you can keep doing this and keep browsing. Now, you can also do this on the phone as well. If you have like a file browsing app or something on the phone, you can do the same thing. You just get a nice user interface to look at this stuff. But this is the important thing that I wanted to show. And what I'm going to do here is show this here. And we can see here's all the types of data that WhatsApp is storing in this location that is user accessible. So this is non-secure storage. It's just stored in here. We also have a WhatsApp backup folder. So I'll do this. I'll do the okay. I'll say CD WhatsApp. Let's see, okay, you know what? We don't actually have any backup folders yet because I haven't created any. That's why. Okay, great. So the point is, I just want to show this is all this data here. So what we're going to do, though, is I want to export this data to my local system. So in order to do that, what I really want is I want to export all the contents of this folder. Before we do anything, I just want to basically collect this data just so that we have it in case we screw something up or if we do something stupid. At least I've got, this data copied off. So in order to do that, I'm going to run ADB pull. And the ADB pull command is just a command where you point it at a file or directory on the phone and it will pull it into your local directory. So I'll do ADB pull, I'll do slash SD card. And what's great about this too, if you notice, even though we're not in a command shell in the Android, ADB pull still recognizes tab completion. So if I type in, I want to go to the Android folder. So if I type in AN here and just press tab, the ADB system will basically quickly query the file system on the phone and autocomplete the path for me. So it's really convenient. And what we want, we're targeting this directory. So I basically want to enter this full command here. So I'll type in media tab, and then I can type in com.w tab. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say ADB pull. And what that did now this is a small, because I don't have that much WhatsApp data. This was very, very fast. But let's say you're working with a real phone. If a user has a year's worth of WhatsApp data, this could take several minutes because it might be pulling in, 30 gigabytes of images and media attachments and backups and all that stuff. So this could take a while, but you'll see the content there. Now, if I go to, I'll switch over to Finder here. This is the same directory that we're in now. This is our WhatsApp testing folder. And now you can see I've copied out all of the files from from the WhatsApp directory. There's not much here because like I said, I haven't used much, but you'll notice there's no databases, there's no message databases, anything like that. Okay. So now that we have a copy of this data, the next thing I want to do is I want to start working on getting the chat messages off the phone. So there's a couple of things we're going to do to get that working. And so here's the phone here. Let me minimize visor here. And on the phone, we're going to go into settings. And I'm going to scroll down to chats. And what you're going to see is you're going to see these settings related to chats. And the thing that we're interested in is chat backup. So go into chat backup and you'll see things like here, okay, local, never, last backup, never. And what's cool is we can do a backup right now. So I can execute a backup and it's going to create a local backup. Okay, which is great, but it doesn't really help us that much because, again, if we take a look at this, Android media, let's say, cd.com.whatsapp. Oops. Now, if we go into this, we're going to see now we have media, databases, and backups. And so what I'll do here is I'm going to pull this data again just so it's a little bit easier to see. So if we go into our Finder window, we now have a folder called Backups, and you can see we have this backup data that's been created. And there's also a databases folder, but this is basically an encrypted version of the database. So technically, when you do this backup, you can extract the data, but it's no good to you because it's all encrypted. The backups are encrypted. They're encrypted using the basically the end-to-end encryption key that the phone stores in a secured location on the phone. So if you have like a full file system access, you can extract the encryption key they're using and potentially decrypt all this stuff. But the problem is we don't have root access to the phone, so we can't extract the encryption key that's on the phone right now. So even though this is a backup, we literally can't do anything with it because it's encrypted. There's nothing we can do with it because we don't have the encryption key. So our goal here is like, well, is there a way for us to create a backup such that we do have the encryption key? Because if we can do that, then guess what? We can then decrypt these backups and actually get the chat message data. So that's what we're going to try to do right now. So if I flip back over to this, if you'll notice at the end here, there's this end-to-end encrypted backup option. So if I select this, it's going to walk me through this process of creating an encrypted backup. And what you'll see is there's a use passkey option, but we don't want that. What we want to use is we want to use the more options. And specifically, we want to use the 64-digit encryption key. So if I select this, what's going to happen is the app is going to give me an option to generate a 64-digit key. which I'll generate, which is what we have right here. And so I can copy this. I don't know if this worked, but I'm curious to see if this will, curious to see if this actually copied to my, oh, looks like it did. Look at that. Let's see, is that, I'm just double checking that that's the right key. Let's see, EB335126, EB335. Yeah, look at that. That's great. So I was able to even copy this content through Visor. So this is what we want here. I'm going to save that. So this is the, once we continue, this key right here is now going to be the encryption key used for the backup process, which is great. That's what we want. So you copy this key, copy it, save it somewhere so you don't lose it. Click continue, and it's going to give you a, are you sure? So WhatsApp is asking, hey, make sure you got a copy of this. If you don't have a copy of it, your backups are screwed. You're never going to be able to decrypt them, because now what you're doing is, instead of WhatsApp using its own managed encryption key, you're basically telling WhatsApp, hey, instead of you managing the encryption key, let me manage the encryption key. So now WhatsApp is giving you the key, and then it's just saying, okay, good luck. If you lose it, we're not going to decrypt your data for you anymore. Okay. So I'm saying I saved my decryption key, and then create your end-to-end encrypted backup. Yes. So now it's going to create a new backup, but this time it's now created a backup that's encrypted with our encryption key. So the next thing I want to do here is I'm going to zip this one up and delete this. And I'm just going to rename it. Just going to rename it to before encryption. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that same directory again. And now if we go into this directory, we're going to look in our backups. And guess what? We have the same stuff here, but you'll notice there's a small difference now. If you remember the first round when we did this, it actually said crypt 14. Now the backups say crypt 15. So what I really want to do here is, this is the file that we want right here. So if I go into backups, there's like this backup data here, but really what we want is, we go into databases, we now have this MSG store 2026, blah, 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 right? And we also have this MSG store db.crypt. But before we start working with these, there's one more thing I want to do. I want to create an encryption key based on this key that we have here. And I'm going to use this WA Crypt Tools open source product to do that. So this is actually a series of tools that this person created to just work with the different encryption processes of WhatsApp. And these are the specific tools here. Let me zoom in just a little bit so it's easier to see. So we have WA create key. This will create key files. We have WA decrypt. This will decrypt backups. Encrypt will encrypt backups. Hack way to try to this is, I guess, some kind of hacky way to try to see if it can decrypt on its own. And then this is WA info. This will just export information about the backup. So right now what we want to use is, we want to use this option right here to create a key. And so in order to do that, I'm going to type in WA, we're going to say create key. And so it's going to do nothing because I forgot to put the -H. Okay, so with -H, we can look at how to use this tool. And what we can see here is we have WA create key, and we have this --hex option, the hex string to convert a key. So that's what we want to do. We want to just create and this, you don't have to do this, but I do it for convenience because it creates a nice encrypted key file. So we're going to say WA create key --hex. And then I'm going to copy that 64-digit key that we created with the output file already exists. Does it? Did I? Yep. All right, let's delete that. Let's do that one more time. Perfect. Okay. So by doing that, what it did was it just took our hex key and it just generated this specific formatted key file that we can use. And we're going to use this to run the actual decryption process. So in order to do that, we need to go grab a copy of our encrypted database, which I believe is going to be this. So I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to move it into our testing folder here. And now what I'm going to do is run, let me look at the docs really quick for the decryption piece, because I can't remember the exact. Okay, here we go. So this is basically the command that we want to run right here. WA decrypt encrypted backup key, message store DB, quick 15, message store DB. So I'm just going to copy that because I'm lazy. And this is what we've named the file. So if we look at Finder, what we're doing is we're running this WA decrypt tool. We're passing in our encrypted backup key. We're passing in our encrypted database. And then we're saying we want the output to be msgstore.db. Okay. Now, if I did everything right, if I stored the encryption key correct, the backup key correctly, if I generated the backup key file correctly, and I grabbed the right database, this should give us a nice positive result. And now we have this nice clean msgstore.db file. And you can notice we went from a 38 kilobyte encrypted database to a 1.3 megabyte database. So that's a good sign. So what I'll do is I'll open this with DB browser for SQLite, and let's see what kind of result we just got. So now I have, if you can see here, this is DB browser. I don't know if I can zoom in. Let me see if I can, because this is super tiny text. I don't know if this thing has a zoom option or not. Let's see here. Doesn't look like it. Anyway, the point is you can see this database is no longer encrypted. We can load it. We can see the entire database structure in SQLite. If you're not familiar, WhatsApp stores all of its chat messages and metadata inside of a SQLite database called MSG Store. Now we can browse the data, and specifically what I'm going to look for is there should be a message column and a message or message table, and that message table has the actual message content. So if I scroll through this, what we're going to see here is we're going to see here are these messages, right? So if we flip back over to WhatsApp and I go back to my messages, you're going to see here's Maher, here's my messaging with Maher, and guess what? Here's that message. Hey, Maher, is that on Premium DNS working like we planned? And I can also see the messages that I've had with Joey as well. Okay. And we can see that here in these messages. Now, I know this is super, super tiny. Let me see. Maybe I have a different viewer that I can open this up with. Okay, so here's a little bit better of a viewer. Let's see if this will have a zoom. I don't think it does. Yeah, I don't think this has zoom either, but it's a little bit, maybe a little bit easier to see. Okay. So again, we have these messages here. This is just a different database viewer that I have open, and you can see all the messages here. So this is just proving that it did decrypt the database, and this is something that we can use. So with that, if we take a look again at this, so if you think about it, all we have to do then is if we wanted to process this folder with something like Celebrite or Axiom, all we really have to do then is just take this decrypted version of the database and just copy it and paste it back into this databases folder. Now, again, I haven't specifically tried parsing it with Celebrite or Axiom or whatever, so you may have to kind of like think about how the database should be placed, like where it should go basically for parsing. But the point is, you now have this clean duplicate of the actual WhatsApp database that you can use either for review or parsing, and it gives you a much better way to go through this data. Now, theoretically, WhatsApp does have a chat archiving process, so you can go to settings, you can go to chats, and it does have an export chat option. But the problem is, it only lets you export like one chat at a time. So you don't have like this massive chat, and the way it exports it in this kind of weird text format, which is kind of hard to work with. And I don't think any tools really know how to process. So it can be kind of just a not fun experience to use that process. But by doing this process, you can then go through and basically get a clean copy of the database with all of the metadata that the database has. And you get a clean copy of the exported data set as well with media files and all that stuff. So that's pretty much it for the presentation. I'll I'll open the floor for any questions if there are any. Feel free to, if you want to, if you want your voice to actually be heard on the recording, feel free to raise your hand and we'll put you on the stage and you can actually ask your question. But please let me know if you have any questions about this or any thoughts in general.
We do have a question in the chat from Paula. When we use other tools, we have requested that the custodian turn off end-to-end encryption and then backup. We can then receive the files unencrypted. Will that work here?
When we use other tools, we have requested that the custodian turn off end-to-end encryption and then backup. We can then receive the files unencrypted. Yeah, if that's an option, maybe that's a much better. I just didn't know that you could turn off the end-to-end encryption. Um, yeah, so if there's a way to, yeah, if anybody knows, is there a way to turn off the end-to-end encryption on the account or in the app? Because the only place that I've seen it is with backups. So that could be, yeah, if that, I mean, Paul, if that's a possibility, if you can turn off that end-to-end encryption, then theoretically, yeah, because that's kind of the problem with these databases and backups is that they're encrypted with the user's WhatsApp key. So if there's a way to turn it off, then that should work theoretically. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Paula. Does anybody else have any questions in the chat? Or if you want to come on mic and ask your question live, just raise your hand and I'll bring you up on stage. You can ask live.
Sorry, I wasn't sharing my screen, but I was digging into the WhatsApp settings on this phone. I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen again because I'm looking for those um, encryption settings.
All right, Stephen, I see your hand raised. I'm going to give you permission to talk and bring you on to ask your question.
Hello, you guys hear me all right?
Yep, I can.
Okay, great. This is a real quick question. I probably already know the answer, but I just want to make sure. The databases for these obviously are local, and so the messaging, it's not reaching out outside of the scope of the phone, correct? Because there would be an issue of um, pulling anything from cloud data or whatever, and if the warrant or anything or consent doesn't cover reaching outside of the scope of the phone, this is all local since it's end to end, correct?
Correct. Right. So the messages are stored locally on the phone. Now, the thing to be aware of is it is possible. There's a feature in WhatsApp where you can link devices. And so in that linked device space, you have like one device that sort of acts as the primary WhatsApp device. And that's where all the chats are actually stored. And then you have a linked device that has like recently synchronized chat messages. So it doesn't necessarily have the entire database, but it has like recent stuff that's synced over to it. And when I've tested that, this process doesn't work because it doesn't allow you to create backups when on a linked device. So that's like one difference that kind of maps to what you're saying. But yes, this process you just saw here, it does not require an internet connection because all it's doing, everything is happening on the phone locally. It's just literally creating a local backup, moving that backup into that user accessible location, and then you're just extracting it using ADB. And I'm using ADB with a USB connection, so I'm not doing it over a network or anything. Even though this thing is in Wi-Fi mode, I just didn't put it in airplane mode. But yeah, if I put it into airplane mode, then we would have we'd just be able to run that same procedure in offline mode.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question, Stephen. We had another question come through the chat from John. If there's an existing backup, would you switch off the E to E encryption, then re-encrypt with the 64-bit key option?
That's a good question. Let's see. And let me share my screen again. Let's take a look at the options here. So if we go to chat backup, yeah, so theoretically, let's see, if your backup is into an encrypted, no one, not even Google, can access it. Let's see if we turn it off. Yeah. So here's the roadblock you'll run into. If it's already enabled, you'll have to enter the password or the encryption key to disable it. So that's if you get a phone that's already encrypted by the user like this, just hope that you have the password. Here, it's unlikely that a user on the street, a layperson, is going to use the 64-bit encryption key option. They're probably, if they do this, they'll probably just use a normal password. So most likely, if you have the PIN code or password to their phone, I bet you 9 times out of 10, whatever the password they set for this will be the same as the one on the phone, or potentially the same type of password they use for other accounts. So likely you could just basically reverse engineer it that way. But yeah, that's the downside. If you come across one of these that's already encrypted, in order to turn it off, you're going to need that encryption key or encryption password.
All right, cool. Does anybody else have other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll bring you up on microphone. All right, I think that's it for questions then. So thanks everybody for coming today. We really appreciate your time, and we're doing another one of these in 2 weeks, as we always do. So we'll hope to see you then.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And we'll send, I think sometime tomorrow, we'll send out emails letting everybody know with a link to the recording and everything. And then probably in about 2 or 3 weeks, we should have this posted on the YouTube channel as well so that everybody can access it. But thanks everybody for joining. If you like this, please take a look at our website, take a look at our product, let us know if you're interested. And then please come back and see us in 2 weeks. And hopefully, I have no idea what I'm going to present on. I've got 2 weeks to figure something else out new. So hopefully I'll have something good for the next workshop Wednesday. So thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.